Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Chris, thanks for joining me. I hope you're doing really well. So recently I did a video of the best men's fragrances of all time as voted for by users of the Fragrantica website. I said I would do the niche version, so here it is, and spoiler, I don't own as many of these fragrances as I did on the designer list. So to find out what made the top 10 best niche fragrances of all time and how many I own, stay tuned. Fragrantica.com do these awards, they have them in all different categories. I'm not quite sure how the voting happens for this, and as we'll get into this, some of the votes look like they've got mixed up a little bit, but I'll get into that as we go through the fragrances. So these are fragrances that were voted for as the best niche fragrances of all time in 2021. So at the end of 2021, these are the fragrances that Fragrantica users thought were the best of all time. And there's a few surprises in here and a few little shocks. Let's get into the list, see which ones I own and if I think they're worthy of being in the list of best niche fragrances of all time. The first fragrance on the list is Initio's Oud for Greatness. So it's doing pretty well because it's a relatively recent fragrance, so to be in the top 10 of all time is pretty good. Now this is where the voting is a little bit strange because I'm going off the number of likes on the Fragrantica Awards page. This one has 284 likes, which I'm assuming are the votes. Maybe not, maybe that's not how the voting's done. This one has 284 likes and that's higher than the fragrance at number 9. So take the ranking with a pinch of salt. I think 9 or 10 are interchangeable and that happens further up in the list as well. So Oud for Greatness, spicy, creamy, musky fragrance, very popular. I think it's because it is so easy to wear. It's one of those fragrances that people love, people give you compliments on. My wife paid me a massive compliment. She never gives me compliments on my fragrance, but with this one she did. She said, whatever you've been wearing today, I really enjoyed it. So of course I started wearing it more. So it's a very sexy fragrance. It's not very oudy at all, very easy to wear, very likable. And I think, even though it's a fairly recent fragrance, worthy of a place in the top 10 niche of all time. We started off well. I owned the first fragrance in the list. We cannot continue that run, unfortunately, because the next fragrance I do not own. I have smelled, I have had a sample, which I loved, and I do wish I owned this fragrance. It's from Andy Tower, and it's Au Coeur du Desert. Of course, Le de Desert Marocain is the popular one. It's the one most people seem to shout about as being a masterpiece. I remember getting a sample of Au Coeur du Desert from Le Senteuse in London a few years ago, and I put it on and I thought, wow, I loved it. It was a woody, leathery, sweet fragrance, fantastically done. I, at the time, thought maybe I prefer it over Le de Desert Marocain. I think the notes were maybe just a little more up my street, so I always intended to get a bottle of this. It never happened for whatever reason, but I do still want a bottle of this fragrance because I think it is fantastic. As much love as it gets, I am a little bit surprised that it made the top 10 niche of all time. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. Obviously, Fragrantica users love it, but it is a fantastic fragrance and probably worthy of being in this list. Oh, and this one got 272 votes, which is less than Oud for Greatness. I'm not sure why they're that way round, but they are. And number 8 is another very popular fragrance, again, fairly recent, so it's done really well to make this list. From Nishane, it's Hachiva. So this is a fruity, mossy powerhouse of a fragrance. Starts soft, smelling a little bit similar to Creed's Aventus, not exactly the same, but comparisons are made. But as it dries down, it goes a greener, mossier route, and it's more powerful than Aventus. As it dries down, it's got a completely different profile, actually. I really love it. I think if you overspray this, it can maybe get a little too much. It is that strong, so you definitely wouldn't need to overspray this fragrance. I really enjoy it. I think it's a fantastic fragrance. If it was down to me, I probably wouldn't have it in my top 10 best niche of all time, but nevertheless, it is still very good. If you haven't tried Nishane's Hachiva, then give it a go. And number 7, it's a fragrance from Frederic Malle, it's Carnal Flower. I've smelled this in store and I remember quite liking it. I'm not sure if I felt maybe it leaned a little too feminine for me. Anyway, it's a very good fragrance. I do not own it, unfortunately. It's not on my wish list of a fragrance that I do want to own. I think there's many more fragrances that I would like to own over that one, but I believe it's very popular. Fragrantica users think it obviously is, but no, I do not own a bottle. It's in the list. You let me know in the comments whether you think Carnal Flower from Frederic Malle is worthy of being in the list of top 10 niche fragrances of all time. Number 6 is a pretty special fragrance, and I also own it. From Serge, it is Shaggy. So this is a powdery tobacco fragrance. It's got a vintage kind of smell. It almost doesn't smell like a modern fragrance. It smells like how fragrances maybe used to be made 100 years ago, but at the same time still very wearable today. It's got this lovely powdery, easygoing quality, but it smells quite complex. It's got some gorgeous nuances. A lot of people refer to this as a masterpiece. I think, yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a timeless fragrance, very classy. Absolutely love wearing this, and 100% I think this is worthy of being one of the top 10 best niche fragrances of all time. And number 5, we've got another one from Nishane. This is composed by perfumer Cecile Xerjoff, who we all know pretty much knocks it out of the park with every release. I'm talking about Annie, and I've smelled this one, I had a sample. I don't own it. I would love to own this fragrance, but it's one of those that I've just not got around to owning. So this is a vanilla fragrance, gorgeously done patchouli, very rich and dense and easy to wear, fantastic. Although I am a little bit surprised that's in this list. As much love as it gets from the fragrance community, I feel that there are fragrances that get more love generally than this. It's a great fragrance, don't get me wrong, but there are some fragrances that aren't in this list that I think get even more love than Annie that aren't here. So Annie is here again. You let me know, do you like it? Do you think it's worth being in the top 10 niche of all time? Fantastic fragrance. Is it top 10 though? If you love fragrance as much as I do, head over to my online store, luxparfum.co.uk. You'll find my favourite brands, plus brands you can't find anywhere else in the UK. Link is in the description. For number 4, we're going back to a tobacco fragrance, and this is one of my favourite, not only one of my favourite tobacco fragrances, but one of my favourite fragrances of all time. So yeah, I definitely agree this one should be in this list. It is no surprise that Xerjoff's Naxos is here. So this is a honey tobacco fragrance. It's got some lavender in there. It's actually a versatile fragrance that I can easily wear all year round. The tobacco isn't too heavy, it's not too rich, not too dense, not too sweet. The lavender gives it a really lovely aromatic quality. So for me, it's versatile, it's super easy to wear, but it smells expensive, it smells different. I love wearing Naxos. I think of all the fragrances from the brand, it's probably one of those that gets talked about the most. So yeah, Naxos is here in the top 10 best niche fragrances of all time, sitting there very happily at number 4, quite deservedly. And number 3, it's another Frederic Malle, and this one is Portrait of a Lady. This fragrance is rose. It's all the rose. In fact, a bit too much rose for me. In terms of the way that the rose is done, I just think it smells a little too feminine. Maybe I smelt this when I was getting into fragrances and I wasn't used to smelling unisex fragrances that were that heavy in rose. I just associated it with a female smell, rightly or wrongly. So whether it's that association of when I first smelled it, to me, it's just a little too feminine for my liking. Having said that, I can appreciate it is a beautifully done fragrance. I can see why it is so popular, not just with women, but a lot of men really love this fragrance. So Portrait of a Lady is there at number 3, but it's not the last Frederic Malle in this list, because the next one is also a Frederic Malle fragrance. At number 2, and the third from Frederic Malle in this list is Musc Ravageur. I don't own this fragrance. It comes in with 491 votes, which again, the voting here seems weird because Portrait of a Lady had 497. So this one at number 2 apparently has less votes than the number 3. I don't know what's going on. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. Musc Ravageur, I like it. It's a sweet, sexy fragrance. It's got this animalistic carnal vibe to it. I find it very easy to wear. I don't own a bottle of this. I could quite easily own a bottle of this. Again, it's just one of those I've not got around to picking up. I am surprised though. Again, as much love as it gets, I feel like there are fragrances that aren't here that get way more love than this fragrance. It's good. I like it. Should it be number 2? What do you think? Here we are at the number 1 best niche fragrance of all time. And this one isn't a surprise, and I'm very glad to say that I do own the masterpiece from Andy Tower, which is L'air de Desert Marocain. I always find it difficult to describe this fragrance, and I think some of the best fragrances are hard to describe because they're so expertly blended that they're not designed so you can pick out individual notes. They're just one magnificent, intoxicating, addictive blend. It's sweet, it's floral, it's musky, it's quite heavy and dense, but at the same time has this contrasting light airiness. I guess that's where the airy Moroccan desert comes in. Anyway, absolutely stunning fragrance. It comes in as the number 1 best niche fragrance of all time with 599 votes. Do you like this fragrance? Do you own it? Do you think it's worthy of being at the number 1 spot? I love it. Many people do. Is it a masterpiece? Let me know in the comments. What would be your number 1 if it isn't this one? There's the list. I'm sure many of you will be asking certain questions, including me, like, what about By Kilian? Where's Grand Soir? Baccarat Rouge? 540, Oud Satin Mood, all stunning fragrances, maybe better than some of them in this list. What about Roger Parfums, Parfum de Malle? Some fantastic fragrances, very, very popular. They get a lot of love, but nowhere to be seen in this top 10 best niche fragrances of all time. I don't know how accurately this reflects what the best-selling fragrances of all time are. It is just users of one website, so there definitely is a little bit of a bias towards Frederic Malle fragrances. Three in the top 10. I mean, one in the top 10, and make room for some of the other fragrance brands that aren't here that I've mentioned. So I don't know, it's just something that doesn't seem to me like it accurately reflects perhaps what the entire community outside of the Fragrantica website think. But that's just me. Let me know what you think. Which fragrances do you think should be here? Which ones do you think are worthy of being in this top 10? Which ones do you think aren't worthy as being in this top 10? And what would you put in here? What would be your best fragrances, your best niche fragrances of all time? Let me know. If you like this video, if you found it useful and enjoyable, hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do all that, I will see you in the next one. And I might even do another of these Fragrantica Awards videos. Let me know if you'd like to see any more, because there's still some interesting ones that I could do. All right, that's it from me. Thanks for watching.